It's a new anthem, and I think it will be interesting for all of us to listen or read.
Tuungane sote na tushereke pamoja ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika. Chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
I would like now to invite Priska. If you hear me, can you please read the text in front of us from Studies in a Globalizing World by Liu Cheng and Egon Spiegel?
Okay, thank you. The text is about holistic versus truncated approaches. One of the main problems with comparing cultures, religions, or nations is our concentration on so-called differences and their excessive emphasis. The picture above demonstrates the problem by using a trick of statistical illustrations that is often applied. Picture A represents facts by presenting only the upper parts of a scale. In this case, there are significant differences between the separate data. However, if we take the whole statistical illustration into account, we will get a very different perspective. In fact, the opposite impression. The alleged data are relatively similar. That is to say, when we so-called differences are emphasized, especially as arguments supporting war, the commonalities, although far bigger, are actually obscured. These studies needs to show how disproportionate this is and the consequences of this. It also needs to reveal how the interests of some groups or individuals can create an imbalance in perspective like that described above. Such people who attach utmost importance to differences that may in fact be quite a minor, as described above, are really pursuing their own interests, whether ideological, economic, or personal. The consequences for the recipients are immense as they become unwittingly fixated on the way of looking at specific situation or constellation that does not affect reality. They therefore ready to act in the interests of the difference makers under conditions that don't exist.
Recording in progress.
Everyone of the 70,000 German soldiers who were brought together in the largest military cemetery in Russia, which was built 70 years after the end of the Second World War, are victims of difference making, where are victims of their military activities. So this is the end of the text.
Thank you very much indeed, Priska. You are welcome all to Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, where we discuss pertinent issues of peace and sustainability in Africa and across the world. And today we have a very important topic before us, which is education, citizenship, and governance, sharing experiences on political leadership practices and peace-building challenges in inclusive and decentralized governance. The case of Tete Province, Mozambique. And our speakers, with Dr. Eliseu Njaiko, who is a professor of philosophy at the Catholic University of Mozambique, who is also a regular participant in Global Peace Studies. Nice to have you again, as always, Eliseu. And he's joined by His Excellency Domingos Viola, the governor of the Tete province in Mozambique, and also Father Elton Lyson, director of a Catholic radio station known as Mwadia in Mozambique. So we've got three peers. We have a priest, a politician, and a philosopher. And I believe that they can speak the same language if they wish to do so. And Eliseu, Domingos, and Elton, you are all welcome. I will just now, Eliseu, make you co-host.
Yes. Dr. George?
Yes, I'm trying to make you co-host so that you can also, but you can still also share your screen and proceed. It's a pleasure having you, and welcome all, one and all, for joining Global Peace today. Now, there is an echo, sorry about that, but we shall all try and mute our microphones.
Dr. George?
Yes?
If we have a sound problem, I will switch off one computer and I will request you to share the slides from your computer. And here we'll use one computer because I'm in Honorable's office, so we can share the computers here.
Yeah, probably if you're using two computers there, you can use one, that would be better. And so.
Hello, Dr. George, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Well, I'm trying to, oh yeah, I see. And Sec Distance, if you are there, please, can you make me also now host again, co-host? Because then I can't share, I can't allow the speaker to share his screen. Sorry about that. I'm trying to see whether I can be made host again.
Hello, Dr. George.
Yes. I hear you. Yes.
Oh,
are you able to share your screen now?
I think so. I am able.
Please try.
Is it visible?
Yes, it is. Great.
Thank you.
Yes,
Hello?
please go ahead.
Speak?
Thank you very much all for your patience. Yes, you can
thank
start.
You very much. All right, thank you very much. So we would like to share our experience today on education, citizenship, and government, sharing experiences on political leadership practices and building and peace building challenges in inclusive governance. So the case of our province in Tete. I would like to thank you all for the patience, and also I would like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Domingo Giola, the governor of Tete Province, a partner in this activism, peace activism, and also Father Elton Laisoni, also an activist, a peace activist. So before I start sharing the experience and the study, I would like to invite Honorable Domingo Giola, the governor of province, to just greet the audience so that we can proceed again.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to invite to be with you in this conference. This is my job, what I did in Tete province about the education, citizen, and government. Is our experience here in Tete. That's why I would like to invite Mr. Njaiko to share with you, and then I'll talk with you later.
Thank you very much indeed. And I would like to ask you to please just use one laptop, or at least maybe one of them should be muted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. George. Thank you, Honorable. And then later on, when we come for the sharing, I will also invite Father Elton to share something with us. And I will continue. This is the roadmap for our presentation, a brief introduction to the context, the challenges and the relevant literature, the study, discussion of results, and then conclusion. In starting, I would say our theme, education, citizenship, and development in inclusive and decentralized governance. It is a case of Tete, district of Wangonia. And as we started at the beginning, this is a project that was done in partnership with the Diocese of Tete, with Father Elton, who is a social activist. Dr. George, can it be heard? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but there is an echo also.
Okay.
Where you are, yes.
All right. Okay. And in partnership also with the governor of Tete province, who was just greeting us, and also with myself as an academic and activist, a peace activist. Is there still echo?
Yeah, but it's better.
All right, thank you very much. So from the findings, we see that Tete province can be set as an example of some kind of action in social activists on inclusion participation that can craft foundations for endogenous development initiatives. And this study was conducted in Domwe, an outreach area where it is very much dominant. It was those days dominant, the opposition party, and also we would feel the difficulties in government reaching that place to conduct development projects. And it is exactly where we went to do the study. We just wanted to share what was what is it? Sorry for that. Just gone. Okay, we would like to share the experience of government in those days, like in the 80s and the 90s, how the government was, so that later on we can also share how the government is right now. The government in those days, we are saying it was highly centralized, with a highly centralized system, and centralization was inherited from the colonial administration, and it was accepted because it was a political setup of the moment, and it was enforced because it was seen as an answer in that aspect. But later on, it was realized that due to the centralization, there was a kind of worsening crisis, internal and the regional socioeconomic conditions were those which were not that desirable because it suffered an influence of the Soviet Union. And that revealed that centralization was not in favor for the kind of development that the country needed. That's why the administration, the centralized administration in that time, it was a kind of inefficient and unbalanced. But when we look at the differences between the 80s and 90s, we see it now. We see Domwe, but by that time, it is a town which was far from town. It favored Renamo occupation, making it a route for the military base of Majenje. And also the place itself, it was a big influence for the rebels, which meant less infrastructure and more poverty. The place had no schools, there were no hospitals, there were no roads, and students would walk long distances going to only 2 schools that we had at that moment. One which was a public school, which was at Villa Ulongwe, and another school was in Unifit. It was a missionary school. And in that walking in long distances, students would go under several dangers and vulnerable conditions, like they would run the danger of being attacked by military or animals. So there was a lot to be said that it was not a gain for the country. It was a big problem because destruction, poverty, and left by the 16 years civil war, extension of other 10 years colonial war, all of them, there were problems running to not to favor the conditions that the country had. And looking at Dome today, we see that the experience of decentralization, which started with Law 394 and a constitutional amendment of Law 9 of 1996, introduced the principle of local government bodies. And this principle, it changed things from one moment to another. Although change itself, it is a process, but we started seeing by this law amendment, we started seeing a lot of change in order of improvement. Government got a way to build schools and it did not build industries. Villages increased production, and that production fueled other developments like road, markets, banks, fuel stations, etc. So there is a kind of endogenous development that was being driven by those changes due to those low changes which were adjusted to a new kind of political environment. And also due to that, due to the development that was now coming, we started seeing villages increasing, villages having more people, and up to now we have a big population in Domwe, which is larger than Ulongwe itself, due to this development that it has been having. And as a response to the development that the place has been having, we have a resolution, a government resolution, which is number 2023 of 2022, 7 June, under Article 7, paragraph 3 of Decree 20, and also of 2015, which elevated Domwe to the category of township. It means, due to those developments, the government responded to those in creating a good range of policies in order to respond to what was happening in the local area. And taking into consideration what Sen says, that poverty always occurs where there are inequalities and injustice in the way power is exercised, which he says it harms vulnerable groups like children, women, and the elderly and the other illiterate who cannot access opportunities. We saw this as a benchmark idea which would guide the kind of reflection which we wanted to bring here, because it is indeed true that in many places, ending poverty depends on the kind of policies and how these policies are conducted. So we see that what we see right now, the government, it has some sense of centralization in most procedures, but decentralization, it is a reality which was really brought to communities. And poverty levels, although continue in some communities, where we find social and economic imbalances and sometimes political complexities and self-exclusion due to politics and activism in politics, we see that some kind of development has come through, and we can see the changes in our daily life. And also, one of the difficulties we have, for example, in the place of study in Domwe, it was the political and cultural weak capacity of the people to give opinion. Also, as we said, Domwe, it was a place.
Hello, Eliseu. Eliseu, we can't hear you now. We can't hear you. Eliseu. So can I ask to like everybody to mute our microphones? It seems that there is an interference. Thank you very much. Eliseu, could you proceed? Or probably Domingos or Elton, if you could proceed, please.
Yes, I am here, but I don't know. We have to change the because I want to share with you my my text, the little text.
I
can do it.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Can you see?
It's coming. Yes.
Okay, we are together?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. I am the coordinator of the Diocesan Commission of Justice and Peace in Tete, Mozambique. This year, we realized the 6th National Week of Faith and Social Commitment. Sexta Semana Nacional de Fé e Compromisso Social. We realized it in the 23 to 3rd July past. And the thematic, the principal thematic was culture of peace. Culture of peace. And I want to share with you what I reflected about the culture of peace, basically the historical path from peace in Mozambique. We in Mozambique get the independence in 1975. So the 2025 we will celebrate the 15th jubilee of the independence. That's why the Commission of Justice and Peace is preparing some reflection to make a conscience of all Mozambican to reflect about what kind of peace we are built in Mozambique. In celebrating the 5th anniversary of independence, jubilee of independence, what kind of peace we have now. That's why I have here some reflections about the history of the building in peace in Mozambique. Okay, in 1988 we have here in Mozambique the visit of Pope John Paul II, and it was this year is the 35th anniversary of this visit. And it is for us an opportunity for us to reflect on the effectiveness of our path in search of peace, a path that began in 1992 with the Rome Agreement among Frelimo and Renamo. And the various treats to peace, the need to continually seek reconciliation, and the other signature that follow it, yes, later, are signs that denounce that the peace that we have were precarious. I will show you that we have three treatments of peace in Mozambique. Firstly, in 1992, the Rome Agreement. Second, in 2004, and the last in 2019. So later I show you. For example, General Peace Agreement in Rome. The country achieved the independence, as I have just said, on June 25, 1975. But some aspects not resolved within Mozambicans meant that from 1976 to 1991, 60 years, the country was devastated by the war of national destabilization. The country was damaged, institutions were destroyed, families were disintegrated, and people hurt outside and inside. A light of hope is with the visit of Pope John Paul II, I've just said, in 1988. Still in the middle of the Civil War, the motto chosen for the visit of Pope was, "Let us build peace in justice and love." Construamos a paz na justiça e no amor. Build the peace in justice and love. 4 years later, with the arduous work of mediation of the Catholic Church in the person of Don Jaime Pedro Gonçalves, Sant'Egidio, the two belligerent parties signed the General Peace Agreement in Rome. And we have 20 years of peace. But in, what can I say? Unfortunately, in Mozambique, the fragile and precarious stability was broken in 2012 with the return of Renamo troops to the forest, damaging compliance with the Acordo Geral de Paz of Rome. All of the 2003 was marked by these conflicts and by the negotiation that culminated in the signing of the agreement to cess military hostilities on 5 September 2004. Such clashes were provoked by Renamo's non-acceptance of the election results that realized in 2004. Thus, in 2005, the clashes continued, but which were suspended with the unilateral announcement of a ceasefire by Renamo in 2006. But now we have in 2019 definitive peace agreement. The most recent agreement was signed on 6 August 2019 in Maputo, Praça da Paz, between President Filipe Nyusi and Renamo leader Osuf Momad. It is a definitive peace agreement because we can say that with this agreement, the two parties confirmed that thesis according to which we don't want war anymore. Look at this. We don't want war anymore. The two parties said so. It is also known as the Maputo Peace and National Reconciliation Agreement. And this agreement within the scope of the DDR, the demilitarization, demobilization, and the reintegration of Renamo forces, military, provided for Renamo guerrilla to hand over their weapons as way of guaranteeing security in view of the visit of Pope Francis, realized in 4th and 6th September 2019, and in view of the election on 5th October. The same agreement within the scope of the decentralization package, as Mr. Jaiko said here, and our honor, Mr. Domingos Viola, provided for the election of provincial governor from 2019, it happened, and district administrator from 2024, a fact that is currently under debate for its possible annulment or postponement. And now, what is the impact of the definitive peace agreement? This agreement was not received with due enthusiasm by the population in general and by a part of Renamo in particular. I am saying about in general. After its signature, there was guerrillas, Renamo, who, having rejected this agreement, considered with them with null, and formed the so-called Renamo military junta militar de Renamo. This junta was led by Mariano Nyong, and his died and the continuity of the DDR package, despite its shadows, led to the close of the last Renamo base with the symbolic delivery of the last weapon by the Renamo leader Yusuf Mamad to the President Filipe Nyusi, and it was realized in Gorongosa, province of Sofala, on 5th June 2023. Finally, path towards 50 years of independence. What can I say? With the commemoration of the 48th anniversary of our country's independence, in a context in which we are preparing for the municipal election now and general election next year, we are invited to look responsibly at this entire journey in search of peace. Because now in Mozambique, we have some challenges. For example, Cabo Delgado insurgents. In that, we have mineral extractivism that is difficult for the communities, and other challenges that we have. We have to recognize the mistakes that we have committed, to contemplate the positive steps we have conquered, and to assume the commitment of never giving up on Mozambique. When I say never giving up on Mozambique, it's because of the text that our philosopher Elias Ngwenya has written in context of the 48th anniversary of independence. We never giving up Mozambique. Não podemos desistir de Mozambique. The God of peace, Christ our Prince of Peace, I give you my peace, and all the teaching of the social magisterium of the church will be the weapons that can help us to face all the obstacles to build the culture of peace that we need in the 50 years of our independence. When we were debating about this, I gave one challenge for Frelimo, because Frelimo is the party that governs Mozambique since its independence. I said to them that it is possible, when we will celebrate the 5th anniversary of our independence, to give to Mozambican one thing, concrete thing. For example, one road from Maputo to Pemba. One road can call a national word, or a road of the United National, like a present of all these 50 years of our independence. Thank you for your concentration.
Thank you very much indeed, Elton, for this wonderful presentation. And I hope that now Eliseo and Domingos could probably join us.
I don't know if you understand very well what I tell, but I'm so sorry. My English
yeah,
is
that's
like
all right.
this.
We understood you very, very well. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And Eliseo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Would you like to continue with your presentation, because unfortunately we lost you?
Yeah, sorry,
midway.
it was sorry. It was a network problem which I had,
Right.
and together with His Excellency Domingos Viola, we had also the same problem.
Right.
Yes. All right.
So if
And
it's
I
fixed,
thank
please
also,
go ahead.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you see the slide?
Yes.
All right.
Number 9, right.
The study. All right. Thank you very much. And I thank Father Elton to have continued with part of the presentation. So here we wanted to share the study itself, which we conducted in the place which we consider it is very well populated by a lot of people. I mean, the majority of the people who are like an opposition party, but we conducted the study to check how was their state of spirit. How do they feel this experience of decentralization? How do they see it? Because it is really a new experience in these last 4 years with the governor Domingos Viola. And so here are some results which we have had from the data collected. Just to share some methodology aspects. The study involved individuals and institutions. So on government sectors, we involved education, healthy, economic activities, and local administration sectors. And also we talked with the local leaders, business agents, and the population. And also it involved some religious and political groups. And the data collection was extended to 3 more studies, which means we took from the university 3 studies which were done also in the same or close by areas. We also took some books which talk a lot about peace, and they have some interviews in them. So this is the amount of data collection that we collected, and we conducted interviews, contact with people, formulation of open, simple, and direct questions, and we recorded some of them. And we also gave other people questionnaires for them to just mark those who did not have time to answer in interviews. And we also used some form of direct observation. So on the bigger challenges that, the biggest challenges shared, they talked of seeing improvement in social infrastructure and the quality of services. And others talked of there was direct integration of the population in decision making. Some of them felt like they felt involved. And also they talked about them seeing now freedom of expression, and they wished the government would help in fulfilling the electoral promises. On the question on what would they request if they were to request anything from the government, they talked of improvement of social infrastructure to accelerate growth or development, more participation in political, social, and economic life, freedom of expression, fulfillment of electoral promises, and extend the secondary school network because and bring quality energy. So in brief, on this question, we see that Domwe, it is a rural area, but it has people who are awake, who are aware of what they need. And when we look into the requests they made along the study, we would see that almost none of them, or very few people, requested for food. Most of them, they requested for education. We want to participate, which means that they are clear about what is decentralization means or what is participation is. They want to participate in the process of development, of governance. The question of, on the category of education as a development strategy, we asked them if they had ever heard about education. So most of them, they said yes, they had heard, they know what is it. It was a continuous process of transmitting knowledge to generations, integration of new ones. It involves the scientific skills and the basic rules of coexistence. And it also is a kind of form, and it forms and it transforms people. It changes their behaviors. They talked about the formation of the citizen. It enables participation, but knowing how to do things and how to be. And there were also a question which we made on, indicators of the benefits that education brings to them. They talked about in the area having a lot of people who are trained in different areas, teachers, nurses, police. They talked of employment, improvement of life, women in higher positions of power. Also, some people have changed their way of thinking, the use of technology, and the way they choose their leaders. So these are signs which show us that really people are understanding those efforts that the government is trying to put across in order to bring about peace, and using development as a process of bringing peace. And on some situations which they think it needs to be improved, they talked of lack of classrooms, desks, and student books. The parents' biggest concern was to bring quality education for their children. And they talked of, they have a lot of children who leave school, joining agriculture projects. So they requested for the government to put some effort of retention policy so that they can keep their children at school. And also they talked of investment in human resources, that the government has to bring serious people so that they can help them to grasp what are the essentials of education. And when we asked them what would they request on this matter, most of them talked of more quality schools. They needed books and they needed more teachers. They needed quality education for quality education for all. And teachers talked of increase in salaries. And also they requested for higher education for all, because in the area we had only 2 secondary schools, but we have a lot of primary schools. So they said we need more higher learning institutions so that we can have our children going to finish their primary school, go to secondary, and finish their secondary school, go to university. And they requested also lower fees, university fees for the children. So in brief, we saw that it is visible in that area how the people put their efforts in thinking that education should be placed in the first place, because it is indeed a priority for development as well as for foundation for peace. And also looking into their needs, what they requested in this area of education, we see that their requests were beyond, they were above the basic needs. They did not request for food. We saw their clear desire to improve education because they want to use this tool as a tool to help them overcome challenges of poverty. And the last part of the questions, it was about development issues. Development as an end in the context of citizenship. We asked them if they knew what was development about. Most of them, almost all, they said, yes, we know what it is. development, it is the existence of better institutions, like our village's wealth. Others talked about any action related to evolution of a community in a given human area or material condition. There are some who talked of change in the state of life, improvement in quality of life, from good to better. And also there are some who talked of change in cultural, economic, and other aspects like political, from a low status to a higher status. So once again, in this, we asked them if they would see in the area some clear signs of development. So they talked of, yes, they saw them. They talked of roads, social services were closer to the community, hospitals, there was a bank branch, electricity, there were shops, and they had also a petrol station, a filling station. They had many buildings than before, which had been destroyed, many cars, many people would buy their own cars, and also agriculture has known some higher status, including housing conditions. And if there were any problems, they would still see, despite the efforts of development. The years talked about hunger, malnutrition, illiteracy, and low level of education for many. And also they talked of lack of formal employment, poor housing, lack of clean water, poor quality of food, and others talked of high price of farming inputs. They want to develop farming, but it's difficult to get fertilizers and the like. Low selling prices of products. Most of them complained about selling their products in Malawi using Malawi kwacha, which is quite lower than the Metical, which is the Mozambican currency. And also they said there were no factories in the area. Since they produce a lot, they wanted if the government would bring some factories, and they had some kind of less improved market, which they wanted to see it developed, and also they needed more higher level schools. And then we made a question on what are the joys and the sorrows that they could share with us. On the joys, they talked about it is a very distant location, but they have electricity. Also, some of them said we have improved a lot about our food and clothing. Some of them said they had improved their housing conditions. They had now good housing, and others said they had access to self-employment, and there were a lot of development gains like trades going through. We had also other shares of joys like social services, people acknowledging that they had hospitals and schools closer to communities, and the roads were very much improved. People had more money now, and infrastructure growth was visible, and motivation to success was also visible. And on the sorrows, people talked of many people not having much opportunities, mostly the poor and those uneducated. We have also people who talked of food products which go to spoilage due to lack of freezers. They said since now we have electricity, the government can think of bringing here containers, freezers, where we can keep food like tomatoes, onions, fresh foods to be kept there so that the following days we can sell them. And we have also people who talked of the use of foreign currency for transactions like Malawi kwacha, which was a kind of disadvantage for them because the currency is lower than the Metical, the Mozambican currency. And also there are people who talked of lack of conditions for higher education due to distance. As we were saying, it is a distant location. And we have also people who talked of lack of formal employment, which leads to people to leave school and engage in farming activities. Because of lack of job access, most people would prefer to engage themselves in farming rather than going to school. So those are kinds of sorrows. And a reflection we raised from these presentations is that despite the limitations and the problems that the location has, and the government itself also finds itself finds in helping the people to get access to development, development facilities, and access to justice and to peace efforts, we find that there is some kind of reciprocal role that education played in this place in view to development. This is a process which was not given much importance before. People would go to school, they would walk long distances without many conditions, but we can see that those efforts, they were worth of, because right now, those people who are educated, they are actually tools who help the government itself to engage others, to see education as a key value for development. And we can also see that it is visible the challenge of inclusive governance, which is the prevalence of signs of extreme poverty, lack of education or high levels of education, and access to capital. This continues a challenge for the government as the process of decentralization is still in process. And as a conclusion, after the study, we came to learn that the inclusive governance, it is indeed a means for participation or for promoting participation in government. And there are challenges, but it is a gain for the Mozambicans, for the Mozambican people. And as limitations, some limitations, we find them like attribution of competencies. We have now the local government, which is made of two offices: the office of the governor, which is the executive branch, and the office of the representative of a state, the state's representative office, which is another office. And the challenge we find now, it is of attribution of competencies, because sometimes, although the law might be clear on what are the competencies for each office, sometimes they will meet in the field because of maybe lack of experience. But we see that maybe with time, there will be some kind of knowledge and wisdom in order to coordinate, to see what kind of activities will be done by who, at which time they will be done. And also, in continuing, another challenge, it is of organization. The provincial government has an assembly composed of elected members, and but in terms of supervision, the office is not let's say it's not it does not work effectively because it is not it doesn't have what we call, the word is autonomy. Yes, I wanted to say financial autonomy. There are responsibilities. There is some kind of organization that is set, but lack of economy hinders a little bit the performance of the offices. And to close, we acknowledge some challenges in the decentralized government, but also acknowledge that there are some and a lot of developments that have been achieved. And so we see that as all of them being components that help us to bring about peace in Mozambique. So in that, we still agree that education has to be with science, yes, and conscience, and that science and conscience will help us to bring about peace in our midst. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Elisel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I would like to ask everybody to please mute your microphones because I cannot actually mute them from here, unfortunately. So thank you very much indeed. You may stop actually sharing your screen. And I would like now to invite participants for questions.
Sorry, can you ask the person speaking?
Furaha, please, could you mute your microphone? So thank you very much indeed. And if I may ask you to ask questions or make comments, I thank you very much indeed for your wonderful presentations, Eliseo, Domingos, and Elton. This has been really very, very impressive. And so if you have a question or comment, please feel free to ask. And there are also useful actually comments in chat, and particularly have seen several from Howard Richards, and is actually asking us to contact Peter Barras just in case we need some clarification. And he has put also his contacts in chat. So thank you very much indeed. Yeah, that's right. Who would like to go first? Sergio, would you like to start? Sergio, please, would you like to speak to us? So this is Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, and we had a very important topic, which is education, citizenship, and governance, sharing experiences on political leadership practices and peace-building challenges in inclusive and decentralized governance. The case of Tete province in Mozambique. And so now I'm asking for questions and comments from you. You can either raise that golden hand or put your question in chat and we'll read it out for you. Thank you. And maybe, would you like to start? Yeah, please, Les, nice to see you. Go ahead.
Hi. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, I arrived late. And I'm really sorry I missed the beginning of the presentation because I found it really, really thought-provoking and important. And I was interested in if you could say some more about whether education is a basic need, or part of sort of essential part of development, and also I'm curious about why most of us on this webinar, sorry, my voice isn't quite awake yet. Most of us on this webinar are educators, and yet we don't often talk about education, even though that's our sort of lifeblood. And so I'm wondering, so if education has become, I'm a little suspicious of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but you know, there's something about it that's really helpful. I'm wondering if education has moved up the hierarchy of needs, right? In terms of, is that one of our basic needs, especially in the sort of post-industrial economy, whatever we want to call it. And I found it interesting, the kind of discussion in the interviews that were done there to me about whether has the role of education moved up, especially as some of the other basic needs have been met. Do I have that right? Is that correct?
Yes, and if I may ask, please, Fernando and everybody, please mute your microphones. Please mute your microphones. Yeah, sorry about that. And Eliseo, did you hear the comments or questions from Lester and Domingos or Elton? You may respond. You may, of course, also feel free to turn on your video so that we can also see you as you respond to questions or comments. Thanks.
Dr. George?
Yes.
Yes, I heard about the first part of Professor Kurt's question, but the second, I didn't understand it quite well. I heard the first question was like, is education a basic need or part and parcel of development? Hello, Dr. George? Hello, Dr. George?
Oh, it looks like
Hello?
it looks like George has gotten frozen. Maybe is
Okay,
internet
yes,
now a
Professor
basic
Kurtz,
need?
could you,
Is internet
yeah,
a basic need now as well?
Yes, Professor, could you please help me with the second question? It seems the first part, Professor Kurtz was asking if whether education is a basic need or part and parcel of development. But the second part, I did not understand you quite well. Sorry.
No, I was trying to reflect on what, again, I apologize. I didn't catch all of your presentation, so perhaps you covered this, but when you were talking about, you know, what the people in your study had said about development, they
Yes.
tended to talk more about things like roads and bridges and electricity and that the sort of material things. And I'm
Yes.
wondering if they saw education becoming more important, especially apparently much of the material aspects of their lives had improved, right?
Yes. Thank you very much for the question. I understood you now. First, trying to explain the first question, trying to share my understanding on the first question, if education is a basic need. I understand that no, it's not a basic need, because actually basic needs include food, access to housing, and health facility, and clothing. Those are most basic. And education is a kind of a second level of needs, because also it is, of course, as Professor was saying, part and parcel of development, because they support each other. Where we develop, people get access to knowledge, and also where people are knowledgeable, they have more facilities to understand, to see, and to get access to development. But in the context, what we were trying to do with the people, the kind of interview of survey that we conducted, it was like also a tool of helping people to understand. It was a survey, at the same time, a lesson to make people understand, to allow them to join pieces to see if they have built a house this year and they have their farm, and after 2 years of farming, they buy a bicycle, they buy a motorbike, and we're trying to make them understand that the good thing of peace is that you get development in a sense that your life changes to better. You may have those material things like a house, a farm, a motorbike, but if those facilitate your lifestyle, and it is now easy for you to access some other infrastructures for your well-being, it is a part of the process of development, including most of them. They would say the government has given us roads, and now many people here are buying cars, and using the cars, it's now possible to take our products to markets, and we get money, and we use the money to put our children at school. So we understand that it's not yet development, but it is a stage of development. Definitely, maybe in the next years, in 2 years' time, or 3 years, or 4 years' time, if we go back to the same location and we make the same questions, they will tell us something different and more of quality than of quantity. What got us interested was that those efforts that the government is putting in to bring about peace in that area, which was actually a stronghold of the opposition, and the government still found it difficult even to take a development project to that place. Right now that we are talking, people are now receptive. If that project is taken to that area, people are able to accept and receive it. I remember in an interview when we talked to the governor, and when he was sharing his experience, he said that when he went to that place, he had to kneel down. Him as a governor, he knelt down, asking the people to collaborate with him in the project of development. And the people said, okay, we have never seen a government authority kneeling for us. We accept you, thank you. So for us, we see this as a big gesture from the government and from the people in the process of peacemaking. And this is through education. I don't know if I've answered you, Professor Kurtz.
Very, very helpful. Thank you. Also, by the way, I really love your idea that you just sort of mentioned in passing, that the survey itself is a kind of education, right? Because people participating in the survey will become more conscious of those kinds of issues that you're raising. I think that's a great idea. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I see that George is still not with us, right? So maybe we can go ahead and proceed with.
Yeah, if I can take on your second question, Professor. The question you made of most of us being educators. I also loved the comment, because sometimes along the survey, we went to a school where we conducted some of the interviews, and we found students, most of them coming from far distant places. What I got interested in the school was that we conducted the interviews in a secondary school, which is actually in the villa itself, in the township. And most students were coming from, most people were coming from very remote areas. What I loved, I didn't share here, it was a bunch of bicycles that we found in a parking place, saying that these children who are coming by bicycles, some of them come 2, others come 1. They are coming from areas where they even have, they never believed in education. They are children of families who belong to a culture of those who, there is a kind of dance here, which is Nyau. I hope Professor Kurtz, you read a lot from internet. If you Google about Nyau, which is a traditional dance here in Tete, those dancers educate their children not to go to school. Their mothers, most of the times, they won't accept to go to hospital for child labor. They will deliver at home, and most of them will use maybe a glass from a bottle. Just cut a bottle and take the glass and cut the umbilical cord of the child. And what I find interesting in your question is that most of us were educators. And we know this context of these people whereby we can have, instead of limiting our surveys, our research in towns, we can really go to those areas and we learn a lot. And when we bring that knowledge from there to town, it becomes something, a new kind of knowledge acquisition, whereby even the government itself understands the importance of putting, even if it is one school to that area or one hospital. When we share these experiences with those government rulers who are willing to listen to us, they really see the importance of even a single hospital to those rural areas. So this was just to support the idea you said that most of us were educators and maybe we don't do enough sometimes in our work as educators. And for me, I would challenge myself as a researcher that maybe this is time now to start leaving the town, the comfort of the town, to go to the outreach there and meet these people who are simple, but they teach us a lot in the way of innovating.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Les, and thank you, Eliseu. Unfortunately, I had got out of the connection and technology, etc. So now I'm joining you with a new name, but I'm still the same person. So thank you very much. I can see also Kifle, are you there? Kifle, could you please ask a question? Welcome from Hekima in Nairobi. Nice to see you.
Thank you, thank you. I wanted to express my gratitude to the presenters. They have done a good job, really thought-provoking also, but very helpful input. One thing that came very clear is that context-based needs, addressing context-based needs are more important than coming up with a policy from above and telling the people we want ABCD. And here the people, it's very important, the real need of the people is addressed first, and then people say we need more this, we need that, and then move up to different levels. Just following Prof. Lester, maybe I want to ask a question of a devil's advocate. We have highly educated people, doctors and professors in leadership, in politics. And yet, Africa still remains back, and still problems, and still corruption. And these who are corrupted are not just any simple person, they're educated also. So I'm asking, what has gone wrong then? If education is so important for development and for whatever, what are we looking here?
And that question goes to Eliseu or Domingos. Of course, Elton, you can all try to respond to that.
Okay, Dr. George.
Yes.
I see here, Honorable Governor, he says, I'm seeing myself limited due to my English. I don't know if I can allow him to speak in Portuguese, then I translate.
Yes, please.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. My English is very, very bad. I speak Portuguese, that's why I write this lesson in Portuguese, and my colleague and Mr. Eliseu translate it for Portuguese to understand. But I can explain in Portuguese, my colleague translator for you. Bom, primeiro eu quero agradecer a todos nesta grande plataforma. Nós trouxemos este tema, sinal de trabalho que fizemos aqui em Moçambique, na província de Tete, concretamente no distrito de Angônia, onde trouxemos a importância da educação, da cidadania para aspecto de desenvolvimento. É tema muito recente para nós, tendo em conta que o nosso país está a implementar novo figurino da governação. Estamos a implementar uma descentralização do nível provincial. Iniciamos em 1998 com a descentralização em pequenas cidades, nas capitais, que é autarquias, mas a partir de 2019 a descentralização tomou conta da província. Então, trouxemos esse tema exatamente para percebermos bocadinho da importância do desenvolvimento local, principalmente do desenvolvimento endógeno, que é feito pelas próprias comunidades onde as coisas ocorrem, onde as coisas acontecem. Então, queríamos mais uma vez agradecer essa oportunidade, porque, afinal de contas, nós vimos aqui a importância da educação, a importância da cidadania, da educação ou da apropriação da sua comunidade para o desenvolvimento local, e para nós é de salutar. E claro que, através desse trabalho, queremos partilhar para colher outras experiências dos outros cantos do mundo sobre aspecto de desenvolvimento local, em que as próprias comunidades são ativas na definição das suas propriedades e aquilo que acontece, e para nós é notório, concretamente no posto administrativo de Doma. Let me say, Mr. Eliseu, to translate for you what I called. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Georgie?
Yes, please. Obrigado.
Asante. I will try to translate what Honorable Governor Domingo Joela has just said. First, he thanked this platform, all of it, for this wonderful job that is being done. And also he brought a context out of which we brought our study in, which he was saying we brought this study done in Angonia. It is important for us because we wanted to see the importance of education in development process. And as we are implementing a new model of governance, which is based on province decentralization, which implies that it will require people at the local level to participate in the process of governance, we thought that it was fundamental to look at the tool education. How can this be used as a tool to support the decentralization governance or this decentralized governance? Because as decentralization, as the word itself says, it means involvement of the local. It is an endogenous kind of development whereby the local people have to develop their local place. So we share our experience, which is just a starting point, sharing with you and with the world so that we can also hear the experience of the world. What are your experiences on governance and what are your experiences on the importance of education for fostering local development, which means development where the locals are the owners of the process itself. So he thanked all of us, the platform, the Mama, for this project, and says he looks forward that this will bring all of us for some kind of knowledge which can be useful for in benefit of our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eliseo and Domingos. And we are slowly coming to the end of this program today. But I would like to invite Jimmy. Jimmy, if you can say something about journalism, because today we've had
Sorry?
Yes.
I can say something.
Yes,
briefly.
please. Okay,
yes.
Go ahead, then, Elton.
I want to make a commentary around this message here from Donna Pido. I don't know. He said, as educators, we need to learn to integrate our knowledge with the local knowledge, whatever it may be. I think it is one of the challenges of our education, because someone asked why, if we have the education as the basis of our development, what about corruption and other problems in our society? I think one of the challenges is the necessity to integrate our local knowledge, to give the values, and to see for this local knowledge as the possibility to interpret our world. Because I think that we have the kind of education we have is imported, is not ours. And if we know how to get our experience and to integrate our experience in the school, in the university, it can be the possibility to develop and to get a sustainable development. Because we are interpreting our world from our kind of our vision. Okay, that's the commentary I want to make, and I think the role of the African researcher is this: to get to know and to integrate this kind of local knowledge as the manner for our development. That's why this kind of local knowledge must integrate the curricula and other things to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elton. And Jimmy, if you hear me, can you say a few words, like in 2 minutes, about journalism, as we have heard now from a politician, a philosopher, and a priest? We can probably complete this cycle.
Yes, thank you, George. I can hear you, and thank you for the invitation. And thank you for all the presentation. It's very important to bring education to the people. It's very important to bring justice to the world. And it's very important to bring peace, because peace, the opposite of peace is war, and war costs a lot of resources. And we don't have resources. We should use the resources for peace. And our peace organization, thank you, George, that I can tell some minutes about it, because we have a strategy which is absolutely without costs. And this is very important. If we want to change the world, if we want to bring justice and peace to the world, we need to have ideas. And it's very good if the idea doesn't cost any money, you know. So because the idea is what we right now, what we are doing here is communication. We have absolutely free communication over the continents, everywhere, especially we are used to it because of the worldwide COVID crisis. And so we are digitalized. And this is our chance for the world peace. We have a strategy to unite our forces, to unite our strength and our peace activities, to bring not only peace, but also justice and education to all the world. But it's one step after the other. And the most important thing is what we right now are preparing is an international network of journalists, because the journalists, the media, is the key to fight the injustice. because the injustice, it's decades of problems, especially in Africa, but everywhere on the world, we have injustice. And it's because a minority of people, they have the power and they have interests, and they use the power to follow their interests. But if we think about mankind, then we have a majority which have rights for justice. It's very, we have this problem since we live on planet Earth. So what's now a new situation is to find ways of communication, ways of uniting and of networking. And I don't want to use too much of your time, but I'm always available to explain the details, and I'm prepared to meet anybody who is interested in this strategy. And I want to motivate you if you have journalist contacts, because the first step to bring peace to the world, to bring truth and justice to the world, is a network of journalists, free, independent journalists. So if you know some of them, just contact me. I put my contacts in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Jimmy. Definitely we will contact you. And now I would like to simply ask Eliseo, Domingos, and Elton for just less than a minute, if you can share that so that we can close. And I'm looking forward to meeting you again on Wednesday. We'll be discussing Ogoni women, gender and feminism with Domale Dubkis in Alberta, Canada. She'll be taking us through that important topic. So you are welcome every Wednesday, actually. So thank you very much indeed. Eliseo, just last word.
Thank you, Dr. George. And I would like also to thank the whole audience of today's for the patience and sorry for the troubles we've heard. Thank you also for all of the commentators on this platform today. I have to agree with all of you that this is a new lesson for me and for us and for my group of research. I especially look at these words which have been said here, that education is really a key, and I think it is a key for any human person. We need to have ideas, and ideas come from education. We need to learn, we have to learn again, and we have to work together as a group. We need to learn from one another. And I think all of this is bringing us back to the Ubuntu and Ujamaa ideas, that a human is only a human with others, and no way a human person can be a human person without others. And thank you for that.
Thank you. Domingos?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, to join with you today is my first day for this presentation. I think that we'll do another thing in future to show you and to learn with you again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, thanks. Elton, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to discuss about global peace, education, citizenship, and sustainable development. And I hope we will be together in another discussion. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, and see you next week. Goodbye.
Yeah.